You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now. Hey guys, this is Momo coming to you live for Bass Musician Magazine. And today's cover interview is titled A Bass Player's Best Friend. And what better way to do that than to bring on one of the world's hottest drummers to talk about what it's like to lock up with the rhythm section and be the heartbeat and your best friend. Here I am with Jonathan Moffett, the man who's been playing with Michael Jackson for like 30 years, Madonna, George Michael, Elton John. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me today. You are officially the first drummer to ever be on Bass Musician Magazine cover. These bass players are in for a treat.
It's such a pleasure to be considered for that, being a drummer on a cover of a bass player magazine, which is very ironic because originally when my father asked me to be in music, I wanted to be a bass player. And so this is like a full circle in my life, to be on the cover of a bass player magazine. So, and not be a bass player, but a drummer instead. So it's pretty ironic, but prophetic.
The drummer and the bass player, to me, is the heart of the band. Like, you could play bass all you want alone in your room or on stage or in the studio. But if you're not in heart and in lock with the beat,
I understand,
you're not really there. You know what I mean?
It is a marriage.
First question people ask on the Bass Musician Magazine is, how did you start your bass journey? But in your case is, how did you start your drum journey?
Well, I started my drum journey wanting to be a bass player. So I started as a bass journey, which got rejected by my father, being the third youngest of the sons in the household.
Okay.
And my father came home from work. He was a supervisor at the post office in New Orleans, Louisiana. And his friend worked there with him. His sons were into music. So my father had a conversation with him. He told him that the music kept him off the streets, got him interested in the hobby. So my father said, great idea. I'm going to ask my sons if they wanted to play music. So he came home one evening and called us to the kitchen. And asked us if we want to play music. So we said, yeah, excitedly. So the oldest brother got asked first. And they said, Oren, which instrument you want to play? Oren immediately said, I want to play bass guitar. Now my second brother, oldest brother, was Adrian. And he said, Adrian, what you want to play? And Adrian said, I want to play lead guitar. So I said, when he asked me, I'm going to say the same thing, be all three of us. Then he said, Jonathan, okay, what do you want to play? I said, I want to play guitar too. And my father said, well, we can't have all guitarists in the family. Somebody got to play something different. And the only other instrument other than guitars and bass I knew was drums. And I said, all right, I'll play drums. So I got stuck with drums, and I was like disappointed because I really wanted to be a bass player. After I got my first private lessons on the snare drum and started realizing the challenges of coordination between the hands and, and the mind and the spirit, I was able to accomplish some of those things. It gives you incentive to move on and become better at it. It gives you inspiration. I can do this. I can do this. This is great. I conquered that. I accomplished that. But I've always had that urge in me to play bass as well.
I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of drummers that have actually picked up basses, and I find that they become even better bass players than if they joined the bass first. You know what I mean? Because of all their polyrhythms and the separation of their limbs, they're usually really great tappers, and they're able to do like insane rhythms when you transfer, your arms to your fingers.
Yeah,
instead,
exactly. Because of the style, both the drums is the foundation of music and the bass is the foundation of music. So they really relate, So the understanding of the foundation within music is amongst both bass players and drummers. So, and we play complementary. So we understand each other's parts. So that's why it's probably a natural transition for bass players to come to drums and for drummers to become bass players,
Okay, guys, now we're going to jump in and start talking about some stuff that is bass specific. Let's talk about the rhythm section, your relationship with the rhythm section, other bass players. What is the main thing, right, that brings the sugar to that foot of yours?
Main thing for me, of course, is the foundation of what the drums are supposed to do. A lot of bass players I play with are very, very musical, and it has great style, great feels, different feels. That's what sets bass players apart, I think, because figures are figures. Everybody plays the same figures. Nobody's inventing such great or new figures than playing. They've always been done before. It's how you express those figures and your own personal voice or tone or style that an approach that you play, your own articulation, your own finesse that defines you and how you present that pattern and that part of the song. So those are the things that distinguish one bass player to another, one drummer to another. But I listened for, when I first started working the bass player, his touch, his feel, how he finessed the strings, his articulation when he plays something really tight and precision. And I'll listen to not only the stroke of one string, the combination of strings, whatever the pattern is, and then I get an idea of the expressions that he used, his vocabulary, going back to learning your own vocabulary. You don't speak French. I learned French so I could speak with people who speak French. I learned, German so I could speak with people who speak German. From bass player to bass player, I learned from their feeling. Like I said, figures are the same, but from their feeling, their dialect, how to speak their language, because I'm listening. And not only to the pattern and the touch and the position of their stroke of the notes, either ahead of the beat or behind the beat, how they pop the strings or attack the strings, that's articulation. It helps me grow a new vocabulary and learn a different fine art of adjusting my playing and have that flexibility in my playing.
Is there a difference between, say, the drums being there first and having a bass player adapt to that versus you coming up with the drum beat that where the bass line was in your face first?
If the drums are there first, the bass player is going to adjust to the drums. And it may affect the way he approached the pattern he plays to the drums, because the drums become the defining element of that song or that groove. So everything adjusts to the drums. Now, if the bass was there first, and I came to over that with a click track, the bass was there, how he approached it and made it feel, I have to adjust to him. Now, if you're playing it together on a simultaneous session, you adjust to one another. You learn the song, and then you both define by listening with the soul. When I say felt like, listen to the spirit, because we all listen with this. Besides this, we listen with our spirit. That's what we feel. We don't feel with the ears. We feel with the soul. So when we work it together, we're cutting a record together or playing together. We're defining the whole of the bass drum groove by listening to one another and creating something that's complementary to one another.
Let's talk about the relationship of the kick drum to the bass part, because there's different ways to approach that. Now, they call you Sugarfoot, and you got quite the elaborate setup of bass drums going on over there where you can be playing multiple drums at the same time, rock and roll. Your relationship to the kick and the bass. Let's talk to these bass players out there and tell them what a guy like you appreciates, likes, any tips and tricks on how to lock that groove even tighter.
Well, the bass drum itself and the bass guitar, both elements of the same frequency range within the mix of a music. Of course, naturally, I relate the bass drum to what the bass player is doing, and not so much in his tuning, but it's going to be in that range of bass frequency in the song or the groove. So we have to be complementary, and not so much, like I said, in the tuning of the drums and all that stuff. We don't have to match notes, but in being in that same playground, so to speak, of the bass frequency, we have to be complementary to one another. Now, I know if somebody, for instance, has a 5-string bass, 6-string bass, they're going to get more subs than my bass drum, but I want to be the attack on the notes that we play together, because my bass drum can only, once it's tuned, get a certain degree of frequency. That's what's going to be it. I hit the bass drum, of course, it's distinctively hard to make it translate and transmit, and I hit it with precision and finesse and articulation. So that gives the attack to the bass underpinning current that the bass player is playing, and his frequency, if he's using a 5-string especially, my upper end of the bass register gives attack to that, and it emphasizes that note of that beat, of the pattern if I'm doing multiple beats with him. So we work together, especially in that lower playground of the bass frequencies, and it's very important that we have communication, spiritually, mentally. If it's a moving pattern, I'll kind of like want to be starting something. It's now my bass drum pattern does the same thing. I'm confident, but that's the kind of rhythm of that song where it was written. So, and on the record, it doesn't have as many notes as I play it. I add one note in there that make it one continuous thing. I feel it's got to move and chug more like a steam engine and get the people into it and pull them in. It's got to move more continuously, and that makes it a continuous pattern, which when you have a continuous pattern like that, it becomes hypnosis. I hypnotize them because there's a continuous thing going on. It's like hypnosis music and things that people listen to, and it makes you go to sleep or it makes you upbeat. It draws you and sucks you in. So I had that extra beat in there to keep it moving. It never stopped. Like a freight train chugging along the track. And it's just, you got the momentum going, and it's not going to stop to the end of the song. Don't stop till you get enough. And Michael loves it because it keeps his spirit up and moving. Same thing with Working Day and Night. Michael the Jackson's Working Day and Night. Bass line, and the bass drums go like on the record, and that's just like want to be starting something. It makes it hypnotic. It's continuous. It's like an African chant, and people get sucked into that continuous thing they hear in their subconscious, and their brain is like, yeah, I'm hooked on this. I need some more of this one. So, and Michael loved that because it kept the show moving when it's pushing like that all the time. It adds more energy.
Thank you for checking out BassMusicianMagazine.com, the face of bass.